If you're struggling with overcoming sales objections as a freight broker or freight agent, if you've ever heard objections like, we're not interested, or we're happy with our current provider, or, we don't do business with brokers, things of that nature. If you've heard those types of objections, what I'm about to share with you today will absolutely positively help you to overcome those objections. Now, this is not a magic bullet, but this is something that very few people, very few brokers, very few agents that I've ever met in my entire career in over 20 years in the freight industry understood or deployed. So, what's the secret? The secret is you have to learn how to disarm your prospect. Now, what do I mean by that? Disarming your prospect. Well, sometimes you get on the phone with a prospect and the first thing you get is resistance. Oh, we're not interested. Or, hey, we're happy with our current providers. That can happen literally in the first 15 to 30 seconds of a cold call, of a sales call. So how do you overcome that? You haven't gathered enough sales intelligence. You may not understand, the timing may be difficult. They may rush you off the phone. And so what you need to do, what you need to learn to do is how to disarm your prospects. And that's what this is going to do right here. So this is a script that I put together for you guys. At the end of this, you'll be able to download this. We'll put a link here on the screen where you can download it, but you got to stick around to the end here. So here's the script. You get on the phone, you introduce yourself, and the first thing you get is an objection. Let's say the objection is, hey, Dennis, we're happy with our current providers. So here's what I would say in that case. Joe, I'm not even sure that I can help you. First, I want you to understand something. I'm not here to try to replace your current brokers or carriers. That's not why I made the call. But I might be able to help identify some gaps where we might be able to help. Now is obviously not a good time, but would you be open to a quick call? Okay, so let's break down what I just did there. This is really important that you understand. There's really three components to what I just did. Number one, there's the words, right? There's the actual script. That's the easy part, okay? The words are the simple part. The hard part, the harder part is the tone and the inflection in the cadence, right? You sound like a real human. You sound like you have empathy and that you understand what they're doing. And you are talking to someone as if they're a friend, as if they're a colleague, as if they're, someone that that you're familiar with, right? It's not a robotic sales call, right? There's a lot that goes into that. But what I'm doing, the key to this and the secret to this and what I'm sharing with you is you are disarming the prospect. How are you disarming them? You're saying, the first thing you say is, Joe, I'm not even sure that I can really help you. That in itself is going to kind of take the hair on the back of their neck down. You're not saying what most brokers are saying, which is, hey, I'm the greatest broker in the world and I can save you all kinds of money. And hey, I've got thousands of trucks and, I'd like to get all your freight. You're not saying that. You're actually taking a very contrarian approach and you're saying, I'm not even sure at this point if I can help you. And then you're further alleviating their concerns by saying, I'm not here to replace your current providers. Okay. So again, now all of a sudden they relax because they're like, well, listen, I've been doing business with XYZ for 20 years and I've been doing business with ABC for 10 years now and they get all my freight and I trust them. Well, if you help to disarm them by letting them know that's not your goal up front, you are much more likely to get them to relax, okay? And to start having a real conversation with you. Because the reality is, when they give you this objection, you've got just a couple of seconds to react. And if you don't react quickly and you don't say the right things in the right way, that call is going to end very abruptly. And then your opportunity is lost. So again, this is not a cure-all. This is not a magic pill. This is a way to try to recover from an objection that's going to end quickly, right? And then I continue to go on with what I am trying to do. And this is an important one where I say, but I might be able to help identify some gaps where we might be able to help. So you're taking more of a consultative approach. You're not saying that I'm the greatest thing in the world and that I can fix all your problems. You're simply saying that, hey, I might be able to identify some of your problems, some of your challenges, and I may be able to support you in those areas. I may or may not. I'm not sure. But if we can jump on a quick call, we'll be able to figure that out very, very quickly. Now, the next stage, right? Let's assume they set up the call. They allow you to do that call. What do we do on the next call? Well, the next call, you can't go in and just start beating them over the head with your pitch and trying to close them, right? That's not what we're going to do. That's not going to work. We have to continue this approach. And that approach is ask some good questions with the goal of one thing, trying to better understand what their challenges are, what their fears are, what their demeanor is, how their freight moves, things of that nature. So I'm going to give you a few questions. I want you to lean in, and this will be a part of the cheat sheet as well. I'm going to give you a few questions that you can ask in this consultative approach. Okay? So here we go. And these are just examples. There are literally hundreds of questions you could ask, but these are just a few questions that you could ask taking a very consultative approach. One of them might be, again, now we're on this next call, right? We've done the introduction, and you simply say to them, listen, in order to try to identify some gaps and better understand how we might be able to help you, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Is that okay? And they're going to say, sure. And then you ask questions. Slowly, be very conscious of not trying to drill them, that's not an interrogation, okay? So one of the questions might be something like, Joe, is your freight more consistent in lane-based, or is it more project-based where it changes frequently? And then you listen. Now, why is that an important question? Because lane-based freight is a lot easier and a lot more predictable. Project-based freight, where say they're doing a big construction job, or they're delivering a bunch of product to an oil field or something that's a one-time project. These one-off projects sometimes are a little bit more challenging logistically for a variety of reasons. So understanding that is an important question for you, okay, in order to take your next steps. Now, if they say it's lane-based, you could ask a question like, well, how often do you add new lanes or new customers jump into the mix, right? So that's an important question. Another question you might say if it's lane-based is, with all the volatility in the market today, what's been the most challenging lane for you in the last few months, right? So what you're trying to identify is some pain. You're trying to identify where they're having challenges. And so you gather all that information, you gather that sales intelligence, right? Now, if they were to say it's project-based, you might ask a question like, so how far into the future are your typical lead times for these types of projects, right? Do you get a week? Do you get a month? Do you get 6 months? How long do you have to plan and prepare the logistics component beforehand? Now, if they tell you, well, we typically get the orders and then it's a week later, you know that they've got to scramble in order to put that all together. But on the same token, if they say, well, we typically get these orders 3 months out, so we know we have an approximate date about 3 months out, okay? So that makes a big difference. Those are the type of consultative questions that you can ask to gather information so that you can determine if, in fact, you can help them. Okay. All right. So that was for the first question, a couple of variations and follow-up questions that will help you. Okay. Another question you might ask, Joe, the last broker you consciously decided to stop doing business with, could you tell me a little bit about what happened and why? Do you see how that works? What you're trying to do is rather than asking them, a question that's going to become adversarial, what you're trying to do is you're being empathetic and understanding the challenges that they've went through. And in turn, you understand what's top of mind and what they're not going to accept. And you're getting them to open up to you, right? So you're building that rapport. Okay, so that's an example of a good question. Another good question is, what's the most challenging part about working with brokers, right? So you're trying to be that listener. You're trying to differentiate yourself. And then eventually you're going to come in and explain why you're different. Okay. So those are an example of some questions. I mean, there are hundreds of different questions you could ask, hundreds of different permutations of these questions that I just shared with you. But these are examples of consultative questions that will allow you to gather additional information to determine if, in fact, you can help them. But the key here is this. Step one is to disarm them, right? Use that script, use that outline, use that framework that I shared with you to disarm them and get them to relax a little bit, okay? Because it's very hard when it's very tense, right? Especially in an early conversation, okay? And then the second part is you need to take a consultative approach by asking good questions rather than just trying to propose a one size fits all. Hey, just give me some lanes and I'll do a quote for you, right? And we'll see if we can be the cheapest guy. That's going to end you up at the bottom of a very dark and not so profitable barrel, okay, where you don't want to be, okay? So listen, if you guys want this cheat sheet, here's all you got to do. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret, okay? freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret. This will give you access to download the cheat sheet, including the scripts, including the framework, including the questions, including everything that you need that we just went over in this episode, okay, and in this training. And listen, again, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret to get the download. If you're curious about becoming a freight broker, maybe you're just looking for some freight broker startup help, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students there. Many of those students have went on to build 6, 7, 8-figure businesses. And we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So appreciate you guys being here. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit the like button. Hit me in the comments with any questions you have or topics you might have for future videos. And appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next week.